Welcome to the Up to No Good channel. The things we pay attention to shape our identity and tell us who we are. The people we keep around us remind us of who we are. This is why it's a good idea to keep good people around. Here are some useful tips on how to build, maintain, and establish good relationships. 1. Know yourself first. If you don't know who you are, your values, likes, morals, interests, and ideas, then it's easier for other people to push theirs off on you rather than encouraging you to discover them for yourself. And in order to be liked, it's easy for us to just accept someone else's values and ingratiate ourselves to them. But if we do this, over time it can leave us feeling lost, disconnected from our sense of self, and contribute to issues like insecurity and problems with self-image. However, if you know those things about yourself, it's much easier to find your people in the world because you know where you belong. You know where people have the same interests and alignment and values as you do. It's also easier to tell people about yourself when you meet new people. From the superficial things like what your favorite food is, to the deeper ideas that really make us who we are, like what you think is virtuous and why you believe that that is. Overall, the less ambiguity you have in your self-awareness, the less likely you are to lose your sense of self in a relationship by becoming something that isn't true to you. 2. Shared values are more important than shared interests. While both have a significance, when you have shared values, you can both agree on what is in general good and bad treatment. In addition to that, you can agree on what is right and wrong. This makes it much easier to establish a sense of mutual respect. Shared values are often necessary for deeper connections and trust building, like with a partner or a close friend. And this is simply because that when we have shared values, we have a mutual understanding that we have the same moral framework and standards of how to treat one another. Shared interests, on the other hand, are good for groups and larger collections of people, where everyone gets together and they participate in the thing or the activity simply because they enjoy it, and there doesn't necessarily have to be any intrinsic value system that everyone agrees in to take part in it. While there may be overlap, different relationships in your life and different groups that you belong to may have different values and different ways that they structure how to treat one another. 3. Communicate with honesty and empathy. In order for any relationship to last long-term, there has to be honesty. And if we communicate with honesty, it allows us to be fully understood by others. And when we allow them this same courtesy, we get the opportunity to fully understand them as well. This minimizes misunderstanding in relationships. And when misunderstanding is at a minimum, empathy can be at its highest. And it's useful to understand that empathy needs to have boundaries. There needs to be some limitations to the amount of empathy we're willing to give to other people. However, honesty doesn't. While honesty doesn't have to be brutal, it also doesn't have to be soft. And the reality is that when we care about someone, it's a requirement that we're able to be honest with them and that they're able to be honest with us. If we see them going down a self-destructive path or we see them doing something that could cause them hardship, it's good to be able to point that out, because the truth is when people we care about do something that creates problems for them or hardships for them, we are also impacted. And this is the nature of empathy. True compassion and true empathy require this of us. And in the same way, it requires that we are willing to listen and understand where they're coming from when they point out the same things that are happening within our lives. These kinds of conversations generally require a certain degree of temperance and reason. They're not always easy, but they're always great opportunities for growth, both individually and for the relationship. 4. Reciprocity and consistency. The longer a relationship exists, the more we understand how it works, and this in and of itself brings about a consistency. When things change, we can have conversations and understand why they changed and what we need to do to adapt to the change. And this is relationship maintenance, and all relationships require this. Every relationship has a value exchange. We put something in, we get something out. The thing we put in might not always be the same thing we get out, but each person gets something out of the relationship that they feel they need. Having a sense of what you need from a friendship, a partnership, a group setting, whatever it may be, gives you a better understanding of what it is that you need out of that interaction. And then if something isn't being met, or if something does go wrong, you can quickly identify it, and then you can do the relationship maintenance required to keep that thing moving steadily. Understanding what other people need from us in the relationship allows us to fulfill that duty more consistently. And therefore, this brings about the reciprocity where everybody pours into the relationship and everybody gets something out of the relationship. Simply put, if everyone's needs are being met, the relationship is much better. And this is across the board. This is any kind of relationship that you could be a part of. 5. Problems. Every relationship is going to have problems. As individuals, we are messy. You put two individuals together, and it's going to be a messy encounter. You put multiple individuals together, it's bound to be a problem at some point. When conflict arises, it's best to come at it from a place of curiosity. What is the problem? What can I do to help solve it? And it's not always necessary for you to defend your position or try to further the argument by trying to prove right versus wrong. Sometimes the problem can be dealt with very effectively just by trying to isolate and identify what the problem is and then brainstorm solutions collectively rather than being in conflict and confrontation over the problem itself to begin with. When you do this, you investigate the problem together rather than prolonging the problem through attack or defense. Additionally, when someone you care about brings their problems to you, it's easier to help them solve the problem when the emotional charge is kept to a minimum, because when emotions are higher, critical thinking is lower. 6. You can grow together or you can grow apart. Growth happens in relationships over time if you build and maintain the relationship. We as individuals also grow, and when we are part of relationships, sometimes we grow faster than the people we're in relationships with, and sometimes their growth outpaces ours. The more connected you are, the better the relationship is going to be. The more you grow, the more you can inspire those around you to grow. And the more they grow, the more they can inspire you to grow. And it's important to prioritize your own growth while still being able to offer support and encouragement for those people that you care about around you. We're not required to grow at their pace, and they're not required to grow at ours. But if we build and maintain the relationship properly, it doesn't necessarily matter because we're ultimately going to be growing together rather than apart. Changes will happen, but with the right communication and maintenance, they can be dealt with more effectively. So remember that the relationships that you build remind you who you are, and who you are reminds the people around you who they are. So be the best you can be for yourself and for them. Till next time, always stay up to no good.